Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, well, we're stepping away a bit from our usual topics, market trends, tech breakthroughs. We're diving into something, I think, much more fundamental, the ultimate human certainty, mortality. We're setting out on a reflective journey today, exploring where the soul goes after this life ends.
It is a profound topic, isn't it? And it touches everyone. Our sources today, they're deep, ancient spiritual traditions, specifically detailed Islamic teachings. But, the aim isn't a religious lecture, not at all. We're looking to pull out core wisdom, things that resonate universally, ideas about being prepared, about reflection, about finding a kind of spiritual peace right now.
Exactly. And the material we have is incredibly specific. It details the soul's departure, its entry into what's called Barzakh, that intermediate realm, the life in the grave, as it's often put. This deep dive is kind of our way to understand the map, you could say, of what might come next.
And understanding that, getting even a glimpse of that unseen reality, it really serves one main purpose for anyone listening. It's about introspection. If we really take on board the certainty, the sheer scale of what's described, well, it ought to radically shift how we feel about our daily struggles, right? The things we chase, the fleeting stuff. It's about finding calm in the present by understanding the ultimate future. #2, the absolute certainty of mortality.
Okay, so let's start unpacking this journey. The sources, they begin right at the foundation, a non-negotiable truth. It's a phrase you hear echoed in many ways, but it's crystallized here. Kulu nafsin zaiqitul mot. Every soul shall taste death.
And that word taste, Zauk, it's so much more than just, a metaphor for ending. The sources really stress this. Death isn't passive. It's an active, profound experience. The soul feels it. When Allah says the soul will taste it, it implies a genuine sensing of that separation, that final leaving of the body. It's described as intense, penetrating. It confirms the gravity of it all. It hits the whole being, not just the physical senses that are failing.
Wow, so that moment of separation is like the most intense experience the soul could possibly have. And there's no getting out of it. The sources seem pretty clear on that.
Absolutely zero chance. Unstoppable. The assurance given is, frankly, chilling. Wherever you are, death will overtake you, even if you're hiding out in fortified castles. Think about it. All the power, the wealth, the security systems humans build. Kings, empires, you name it, all designed for safety, for longevity. The sources just say, nope, none of that matters against this decree.
Right, and there's that story, that anecdote about Prophet Solomon isn't there. He had unparalleled power and wealth.
Unmatched dominion, yeah. But the angel of death, Malakul Maut, just walks into his court, not bowing or anything, just pure authority, and states it plainly. I am the one who does not fear kings, nor am I prevented by bodyguards. That one line just cuts through all our illusions of control, doesn't it? It says, look, the divine decree is the only real power here. No amount of earthly defense changes the schedule.
And it's not just something lurking behind us, is it? There's this other image, quite terrifying, really, that we're actually walking towards it, meeting it head on.
We are indeed. Basically, the death you're running from. It's going to meet you. It's confronting you from the front. Imagine a single track. You're on it, moving relentlessly towards one single point. The meeting with the Creator. Sure, medicine, healthy living, maybe they buy us a few extra years on the track, but the destination point, that's fixed. The sources even remind us, we never granted immortality to any human being before you, Muhammad. If even the most beloved prophet had to face this, well, it's inescapable for the rest of us.
This is where it really connects our life now to that future, isn't it? The scale of it all. We spend, 20, 30, 50 years maybe preparing for a life that lasts 60, 80, maybe 100 years, if we're lucky, Dunya. But this next place, Barzakh, it's an intermediate stage lasting until the day of judgment. That could be thousands of years.
That contrast, it forces a total rethink of priorities. Barzakh literally means a barrier, an interval. It separates this short life we know from the eternal one to come. When you look at that potentially vast stretch of time in Barzakh and then eternity after that, our 70 or 80 years here starts to feel less like a lifetime and more like, a quick coffee break.
And the sources actually try to quantify that feeling, don't they?
They do. They say when the day of judgment finally happens, people will look back at their time in dunya, this world, and it will feel like almost nothing. They'll realize, it will feel like they only stayed on Earth for a single afternoon or its morning, or maybe just a day or part of a day. Imagine living 80 years, achieving all your goals, building everything, and then in that moment of truth, realizing, The whole thing felt like a long lunch in the grand scheme of reality.
That completely reframes, well, everything. Long-term financial plans, career ladders, all that striving. If this life feels like an afternoon eventually, then our preparation has to shift focus, surely.
It has to. It moves the whole question away from how long can I make this last to how am I living now in preparation for that much, much longer existence. #hack3, the wisdom of preparation.
Which leads us straight into the wisdom of preparation. The real tragedy, the sources seem to say, isn't death itself. It's that we don't know when or where.
Exactly. That quote nails it. Wama tadri nafsun bi ardin tamad. No soul knows what it will earn tomorrow, and no soul knows in what land it will die. That ambiguity, that uncertainty, it demands we live ready, continuously, actively, because honestly, we don't even know if we'll finish this conversation, right?
And that urgency, it's heightened by this concept of matul fuja, sudden death. The sources say it's actually a sign of the end times approaching.
Yeah, it's mentioned as one of the signs of the hour. That as time goes on, sudden death will become more common. And think about what that means. It removes that buffer, the slow decline, the long illness, the time someone might think they have for a final repentance, asking forgiveness, maybe fixing things they did wrong, returning rights they took. If sudden death increases, it forces the issue. Repentance can't wait. Preparation has to be now, ongoing.
Okay, so given this unpredictable certainty, how do the sources define real intelligence? Because it's clearly not about your bank balance or your degree.
Not even close. When the prophet was asked, Man aquisunas, who are the smartest, the most intelligent people? The answer completely flipped the script on worldly success. Intelligence was defined purely by how you relate to death. First, aktharum lamoti dhikran, the ones who remember death the most. And second, aktharum aftista the dan lima the bottle moat, the ones who prepare the most for what comes after death.
Wow. That's quite an indictment of modern life, isn't it? If remembering death makes you intelligent, then most of us, glued to screens, chasing the next thing, we're acting, well, unintelligently by that measure.
That's exactly the point. The sources call death hadamul ladzat, the destroyer of pleasures. It's presented as the antidote, the necessary medicine for all the distraction, the endless information, the noise we live in. When you truly remember the destroyer of pleasures, suddenly the appeal of that extra validation on social media or buying more stuff you don't need or that temporary career win, it just loses its power. Its corrosive grip weakens.
So how do you actually do that? How do you remember death often without just getting depressed or, paralyzed by fear?
It's not about being morbid. It's about perspective, keeping things in proportion. The sources suggest practical things like ziara kubur, visiting graves, not as some kind of morbid tourism, obviously, but for reflection. Standing there, it pulls you out of the day-to-day noise. It's a stark reminder. This is the endpoint for everyone, no matter what they built or achieved. It kind of forces you to look at your spiritual books, doesn't it?
And the sources get really specific about the benefits, right? 3 tangible rewards right now for remembering death this way.
Yes, and they're powerful incentives for changing course immediately. First, remembering death makes you hurry to repent. You realize time might be short, so you can't put off fixing your mistakes. Second, it motivates you to increase your good deeds and worship while you still have health, breath, the ability. Someone wise once said, the people already in the graves would give anything just to do one simple prayer, something we postpone daily.
Oof. Yeah, that hits home. Puts our spiritual laziness in sharp focus. That ability to just do a good deed is a currency we only have right now. What's the third reward? Sounds crucial psychologically.
It is. It's contentment. Kinda. Achieving a state where you're satisfied with what's enough. You stop that relentless, exhausting chase for more wealth, more stuff, more accumulation. You realize that everything you gather, the portfolio, the fancy car, the big house, it all gets left behind the second the soul departs. Remembering death helps you trade that anxiety of accumulation for the peace of sufficiency. You shift your focus to gathering taqwa, righteousness, God consciousness, because that is the only provision you can actually take with you.
So remembering death isn't depressing, it's focusing. It makes you repentant, proactive, and actually more peaceful because it frees you from that constant need more anxiety.
Precisely. It's like the ultimate mental reset button. #Avi. The reality of the departure of the soul.
Okay, let's shift to the actual process now. If we had to define it simply, what is death, al-maut, according to these sources?
Strictly speaking, al-maut is the separation, the exit of the ruh, the soul, from the jasad, the physical body. It's the end point of the soul's temporary assignment to its earthly vehicle.
And it's not like flipping a switch, is it? It's described as a process with 3 stages leading up to that final separation.
That's right. The first stage is sakaratul maut. This is described as a period of overwhelming difficulty, intense suffering right before death. The word succor itself suggests something that covers or overwhelms, maybe even clouding awareness because the struggle is so intense.
But why? Why does it have to be difficult, especially for someone who lived a good life?
Well, the sources explain this intensity serves a vital, purifying function. For the believer, Sakaratul Maut acts like a final cleansing fire. It removes any remaining minor sins and significantly elevates their spiritual rank right before they enter the next realm. It's concerned by the fact that even the prophet himself experienced this intensely. He said, "There are indeed agonies in death." So it's seen as a necessary final trial designed to purify and raise status.
So even for the best of people, it was a real physical and spiritual struggle.
Absolutely. Then comes the second stage, Alitidor. This is when the soul actually begins the process of detaching, starting to leave the body. And the final stage, Al-Maut, is that complete, final, irreversible separation.
Now, the sources make a really key distinction in how death is experienced or maybe perceived, depending on how the person lived. For the believer, it's described as rest.
Yes, for Al-Abdul Mukmin, the believing servant, death is istirha, rest. They are finally resting from the lifelong kato, kaid, the toil, the exhaustion, the worries, the political mess, the social pressures, the constant inner battle against temptation that defines life in dunya. They move immediately towards God's vast mercy, rahmatillah. Like the Prophet reassured his daughter Fatima in his own final moments, no suffering will come to your father after this day.
That offers incredible comfort. Thinking about righteous loved ones who've passed, they're genuinely at peace. But then there's the flip side. For the Al-Abdul Fajir, the habitual sinner, the oppressor, their death means something entirely different.
Completely inverted. For the wicked person, their death isn't rest for them. It's described as a relief for everyone else. For the cosmos, even. The sources paint this stark picture. The people they wronged, the land they may have corrupted, even the animals that might have suffered because of their actions. They all find relief when that person is gone. Their death stops the cycle of harm they were causing.
That's a heavy thought.
Yeah.
That someone's life could be so negative that the whole environment sort of breathes a sigh of relief when they're gone. Before we get into the soul's actual exit, you mentioned an analogy about Hajj earlier.
Yes, the provision analogy is perfect. Think about preparing for a physical journey like the Hajj pilgrimage. You need supplies, right? Tazwad. Water, food, money, tickets, a place to stay. We plan these trips meticulously, but the safar, the journey of death, it's infinitely longer, infinitely more critical, and it requires only one true provision.
Just taqwa, righteousness, God consciousness. But how does that work practically? We still have worldly duties, right? Working, supporting families, saving for kids. That takes focus too. Does remembering death mean we just abandon all that?
That's the tension, isn't it? Especially today. The sources aren't saying abandon the world. They're saying reframe its purpose. Taqwa is the provision, yes, but it's not some abstract thing floating in the air. It's the consciousness behind your actions, how you earn, how you spend, how you treat people, saving for your children, if done sincerely, from lawful means, with the awareness that you're fulfilling a duty God gave you that becomes an act of taqwa. The provision isn't the money itself, it's the intention, the God consciousness driving it. It makes sure the world serves as a tool, a means to an end, not the end goal itself.
Okay, so with that provision of taqwa hopefully secured, let's walk through the departure of Al-Mukmin, the believer. This is based on that detailed hadith, the narration of Al-Bara bin Azib, right?
Yes, it paints an incredible picture, a scene of immense honor long before the soul actually leaves. Angels of mercy descend from the heavens. They arrive with faces described as radiant white, shining like the sun, and they bring with them special shrouds, kafan, and perfume, hanat, directly from paradise. And they sit waiting, Mada al-Bashar, as far as the eye can see. Like an ethereal honor guard, completely invisible to the family gathered around, but profoundly present for the soul.
The whole atmosphere just transforms instantly. Peace, fragrance.
Totally. Then the angel of death, Malakul Maut, comes forward and sits near the person's head. The call is gentle, respectful, full of good news. Ayatuhan nafsu at-taiba, O good soul, or O pure soul, come out to forgiveness from Allah and His pleasure.
And the way it comes out, that analogy is beautiful.
It is. The soul flows out smoothly, easily, like a drop of water pouring from the spout of a jug. No resistance, no clinging, no struggle. And the moment Malakul Maut receives the soul, the angels of mercy immediately take it. It's not left in the angel of death's hand for even the blink of an eye, the sources say. They wrap it instantly in that heavenly shroud, apply the heavenly perfume, and from that soul comes a fragrance, described as the best scent of musk ever found on earth.
It sounds like a swift, honored procession heading straight up.
Very swift. The soul is carried upwards, ascending through the heavens.
Yeah.
As they pass groups of other angels stationed at different levels, those angels inquire, whose good soul is this?
Yeah.
And the angels carrying it respond by calling the soul by the best names, the most honorable titles the person was known by during their life in dunya. It's a journey of recognition, honor, with the inhabitants of the heavens acknowledging its arrival.
And this continues all the way up through all the levels to the seventh heaven.
Right up to the seventh heaven. And there, the ultimate decree is given. Allah commands that the soul's record, its book of deeds, be placed in Ilyun. This is described as the highest, most exalted register, where the records of the truly righteous are kept. This confirms the soul's high status immediately, even before the final judgment. Then, following this decree, Allah commands the soul to be returned to its body, but now in the realm of Barzakh.
And when it returns, there's this immediate reunion with other believers who passed before. That sounds incredibly comforting.
It's described as intensely joyful, a reunion filled with more happiness than even meeting a long-lost loved one you thought was gone forever. They gather around the newcomer, eager for news. How is so-and-so doing back there? What happened with that situation? Asking about friends and family still in dunya.
But then others step in, right? They suggest giving the newcomer a break.
Yes, someone will gently say, leave him be for a moment, let him rest, for he was just in the toil of the world. This is such a key insight. It confirms that even a good, successful life in dunya is still seen as inherently tiring, full of struggle and spiritual battles from the perspective of those who've left it. They understand the relief the newcomer feels.
So what's the immediate reward, the tangible reality for this soul now in Alam Barzakh?
Instant comfort. The grave, or perhaps better said, the soul's experience of its intermediate space is expanded Mada al-Bashar as far as the eye can see. It feels spacious, open, and crucially, a gate to paradise is open for him. Not that he enters paradise yet, but its breeze, its fragrance, its light, its beauty flow into his space, giving him a constant foretaste of the ultimate reward. It removes all fear, all loneliness.
And their good deeds, they actually become manifest, like companions.
Exactly. The abstract becomes concrete. A handsome man appears, radiating goodness, wearing beautiful clothes, smelling wonderful, and he introduces himself. I am your righteous deeds. Every prayer, every act of charity, every moment of patience, every kind word. Allah transforms them into this beautiful, comforting companion, someone to talk to, someone offering solace in that waiting period.
Wow. So given all this immediate peace, this foretaste of paradise, this companionship, what's the believer's final request in Barzakh?
It's almost paradoxical, given the peace they're in. The mu'min feels such overwhelming relief and eagerness for the full reward that their only request is, "Oh Lord, hasten the hour, bring on the day of judgment so I can finally go to my real family and my real assets in paradise." They want to speed up time to get to the final destination.
What a picture of serenity and certainty. Okay, now we have to look at the complete opposite, the experience of the kafir or fajir, the disbeliever, the major sinner, the one whose life was about wronging themselves or others.
The contrast is stark. Instead of angels of mercy, angels of punishment descend. Their faces are described as terrifying, black, and they bring rough, coarse cloth called musu, like a burial shroud made of fire, basically, instead of heavenly silk. They also sit Mada al-Bashar, as far as the eye can see, waiting for the inevitable disaster. Unseen by the living, but terrifyingly real to the dying soul.
And the call from the angel of death is, well, it's condemnation.
It's harsh, terrifying, authoritative. Ayatuhan nafsul kabitha. O wicked soul, or O corrupt soul, come out to the wrath and anger of Allah. But the soul knows where it's headed. It refuses to leave. It scatters itself throughout the body, clinging desperately to every nerve, every fiber, trying to resist the call.
Which means the extraction has to be forceful, painful.
Incredibly violent. The Prophet used a truly awful analogy. Imagine a skewer, an iron rod with multiple hooks or barbs on it, being dragged through a ball of wet wool. As you pull it out, it rips and tears and shreds the fibers. That's the image given for how the wicked soul is ripped out, tearing its connections to the body agonizingly.
And the scent, instead of heavenly musk.
The absolute opposite. It emits the foulest stench imaginable, worse than the most rotten corpse ever found on earth. And as it's carried upwards, the journey is one of shame. When they pass other angels, the soul is identified by the worst names, the most degrading titles the person was known by in dunya. Public confirmation of their disgrace.
Then they reach the gates of the lowest heaven, only to be turned away.
Flatly refused. The angels carrying it ask for entry, but the gates remain shut. The sources quote the Quranic verse here. إن الذين كذبوا بآياتنا واستكبروا عنها تفتح لهم أبواب السماء. Essentially, for those who denied God's signs and were arrogant, the gates of heaven will not be opened.
And there's that expression of utter impossibility used too.
Yes, the commentary adds that the gates would only open for such a soul when the camel passes through the eye of the needle, an ancient way of saying never. It's absolutely, definitively impossible. No chance of ascending.
So rejected from above, the soul has to go down. What happens then?
Allah commands that this soul's record be written in Sijin. This is described as the lowest earth, the deepest dungeon, the absolute opposite of the high register of Ilion. And the soul isn't gently returned. It's described as being thrown down violently from the sky. Verses are cited that evoke images of being snatched by a bird and dropped, or being swept away by a fierce wind and smashed into a distant place. It's an immediate physical punishment reflecting its fall from grace.
And the immediate experience in Alam Barzakh is torment.
Instant torment. A bedding, a floor covering made of fire is spread out for them, and a door to hell itself is opened into their grave space, bringing its scorching heat, its poisonous fumes, its terrifying sounds, the semum, and the grave itself compresses. It squeezes the soul's connection to that realm so tightly, the sources say, that the person's ribs intertwine, a feeling of unbearable constriction.
And just like the believer, their deeds also become manifest.
Mm-hmm.
Horrifyingly.
Yes. An incredibly ugly man appears. Vile clothes, ragged, emitting a repulsive, foul smell. And he says, "Rejoice in what displeases you. This is the day you were promised. I am your evil deeds." That lifetime of cruelty, injustice, arrogance, forbidden consumption, it all takes the form of this hideous, terrifying companion, ensuring perpetual misery and isolation in the grave.
So their request is the total opposite of the believer's plea.
Completely. Gripped by terror and suffering, the sinner begs, "Oh Lord, do not hasten the hour. Don't bring on the day of judgment." They desperately want Barzakh to last forever because they absolutely know that the hellfire waiting at the final resurrection will be infinitely worse than even the torment they're currently enduring.
And there's that really tragic moment mentioned, the plea before the soul actually leaves.
Ah, yes. The ultimate moment of futile regret. As the wrongdoer sees the angels of punishment arrive, realizes it's truly over, they desperately beg for just a tiny delay. Agiline Corp, just a short term. Maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. They plead, "Let me just give some charity now. Let me become righteous." But the answer comes back, swift and final. Kala. Never. It's too late. The time for preparation was during life, when they were busy chasing worldly things and ignoring the warnings. That door is now shut. #tag 7, the interrogation of Barzakh.
So whether the soul's exit was peaceful or agonizing, every single soul enters this realm, Alam Barzakh. We need to be really clear, though. This isn't just about the physical hole in the ground, right?
Absolutely crucial point. Alam Barzakh is a reality for the soul regardless of what happened to the physical body. Buried, cremated, lost at sea, eaten by animals, blown to dust. It doesn't matter. It's a separate dimension, a different state of existence for the soul. Think of it like a dream state, maybe. The experience is profoundly real to the soul, even if the physical body is gone or inert. The connection is spiritual, not physical.
Is that where the example of Pharaoh comes in? To make that concrete?
Exactly. Pharaoh drowned. The Quran mentions his body was preserved as a sign. We can see his mummy today. Yet the sources confirm he is currently experiencing torment in Barzakh. His physical body is right here, intact, in a museum case. But his soul is in Barzakh, undergoing punishment. It shows the comfort or torment is happening to the soul in that spiritual realm, independent of the corpse's condition. The soul is the one experiencing it.
Okay, so once the soul is settled in this Barzakh state, the interrogation begins. This happens to everyone.
Yes, the interrogation is universal. 2 specific angels arrive, known as Munkar and Nakir. They're often described in traditions as being quite fearsome in appearance, huge, maybe black and blue, intimidating to test the soul's conviction. They make the individual sit up within their grave space, within that Barzakh reality, for the defining questions.
And the questions are laser-focused, aren't they? Right on the core beliefs and identity built during life. What are the 3 main questions?
They are fundamental. First, man, Rabbuk, who is your Lord? Second, Madinuk, what is your religion? And third, Mahadha ar-rajul alladhi bu'itha fikum, who is this man who was sent among you? Meaning the Prophet Muhammad.
And for the believer, the answers come easily, confidently, not just from memory, but from lived experience.
Exactly. The Mu'min answers clearly with yaqeen, with certainty rooted in belief and action. My Lord is Allah. My religion is Islam. This man sent among us is Muhammad, the messenger of Allah. And crucially, when asked, how did you know? They reply something like, I read the book of Allah, the Quran, I believed in it, and I affirmed its truth, meaning they lived by it. Their life was the proof. At that point, a voice from the heavens declares, my servant has spoken the truth. And immediately, the comforts we described earlier, the expansion, the door to paradise, are established.
But the sinner, the hypocrite, the disbeliever, they face this awful inability to answer.
It's tragic. They stammer, they hesitate. Haha, la adri, I don't know. They might try to recall the right answer they heard others say, or maybe try to lie, but the sources say they simply cannot articulate the truth they rejected or ignored in life. The conviction isn't there because it wasn't lived, it wasn't integrated. And again, a voice from the heavens confirms their failure. He has lied. And the consequences, the fire, the compression, the torment begin immediately based on that failure.
So that interrogation, it basically sets the stage for their entire existence in Barzakh, right up until the final resurrection.
Yeah.
It's like an instant, perfect judgment based on their life's foundation.
Precisely. The state of the grave, whether it becomes a garden of paradise or a pit of hellfire, is the direct, immediate result of how those questions are answered. It's the first crucial stage of the reckoning.
This has been, well, incredibly detailed and quite sobering, frankly, a deep dive into the soul's ultimate journey. If we boil it down, the core difference between the two paths, peace versus punishment, it all comes down to preparation, doesn't it? The deeds, the taqwa, gathered in dunya.
That's the inescapable takeaway, accountability. The comfort or the torment, it isn't deferred until some far-off judgment day. It starts the moment the soul leaves the body. Your deeds literally become your companion, either beautiful and comforting or hideous and terrifying.
Let's quickly loop back to sudden death, Montul Fujah. We said it's a sign of the hour, but the sources also called it a mercy for the believer. How so?
Right. For the mu'min, sudden death is seen as rafatun bil mu'min, a form of ease or mercy. Why? Because it spares them the potentially prolonged suffering of sakaratul maut, the agony of dying. It also spares them a potentially long, debilitating illness that might test their faith or make them dependent on others. It's viewed as a swift, clean transition to the peace awaiting them.
But for the fajir, the wrongdoer, that same suddenness just compounds the disaster.
Exactly. For them, it's a sfen alal fajir, a cause of intense regret, even anguish, because they lost that final window. That last chance, however slim, to repent sincerely, to try and fix wrongs, return stolen property, ask forgiveness from people they hurt. The suddenness slams the door shut on any possibility of 11th-hour redemption. It seals their fate, a fate they built themselves without any further recourse.
That contrast really drives home how the end is directly tied to the ethical fabric of the life lived. Okay, maybe one final thought for listeners to carry with them. Something connecting the vastness of this journey ahead to our often inadequate efforts now.
There are those poignant words attributed to Ali bin Hussein Zain al-Abidin, a revered figure in the tradition. He reflected, "My journey is very far, and my provisions are insufficient. My strength is weakening, while death continues to seek me." It captures that sense of urgency and unpreparedness many feel.
So, knowing that our 80 years here might feel like just an afternoon, knowing that our deeds become our immediate reality in Barzakh, the real audit question for all of us today is, what worldly distraction am I letting get in the way? Is it wealth? Is it chasing status? Constant entertainment? Obsession with things that won't last? What am I allowing to make me forget the truly eternal journey that lies ahead? Because that journey is long.
And that true safari, as the sources call it, requires only that one provision, taqwa. God consciousness woven into the fabric of our lives. The aim isn't just to get by or even just live a good life by worldly standards. It's to ensure that when your soul departs, when your record is finalized in Ilion or, God forbid, thrown towards Sijin, the companion waiting for you, your deeds, is the one you truly wish to meet.
A powerful thought indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.